Little Billy hung on tight. Oh, it was thrilling to be flying on the back of this great swan. It was wonderful to be up in the air and to feel the air swishing past his face. He hung on very tightly to Swan's feathers. And suddenly, there it was just below them, the huge billow of orange-red smoke and steam coming from the nostrils of the awesome gruncher. The smoke enveloped the beast completely, and yet through the smoke, as they got very close, Little Billy could just make out the enormous black shadow of some hairy monster. The snorting grew louder, and as the brute got more and more excited by the nearness of the delicious Little Billy smell, the smoke began coming out faster and faster. Whoomp, 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 whoomp. Little Billy could feel the monster getting closer. Whoomp, 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 whoomp. Swan was flying back and forth right in front of the snorting cloud of smoke, tempting and tantalizing the beast and driving him mad with greed. The beast, or rather the cloud of smoke, kept lunging at Little Billy, but Swan was too quick for him and jinked away every time. The snorting grew louder and more ferocious every second, and the whoomp whoomps of thick hot steam came pouring out, thicker than ever. Once, Swan looked round to see if Little Billy was all right. Little Billy nodded and smiled, and he could swear Swan nodded and smiled right back at him. At last, Swan must have decided they had done enough teasing. The great thick orange-red cloud was leaping up and down in a frenzy of hunger and desire, and the whole forest was echoing with the snorts and growls of the awesome creature. Swan glided around and headed in a straight line toward the edge of the forest, and of course the vast cloud of smoke came hurtling after it. Swan was very careful to fly low all the time, keeping just in front of the gruncher, leading him on and on, threading a path carefully through the great trees in the forest. The scent of human food was very strong in the gruncher's nostrils, and he must have been thinking that so long as he kept going flat out, he would catch his meal in the end. Suddenly, right in front of them on the edge of the forest was the lake. The gruncher, hurtling along right behind them, was interested only in the glorious human scent he was following. Swan flew straight towards the lake. It skimmed low over the water. The gruncher kept going. Little Billy, looking back, saw the gruncher plunging right into the lake, and then the whole lake seemed to erupt into a mass of boiling, steaming, frothing, bubbling water. For a brief moment, the terrible red-hot, smoke-belching gruncher made the lake boil and smoke like a volcano. Then the fire went out, and the awesome beast disappeared under the waves. When it was all over, Swan and Little Billy flew higher and circled the lake for a last look. And suddenly the whole sky around them was filled with birds, and every bird had one or more Minpins on its back. Little Billy recognized Dahl riding on a fine jay, and he was waving and cheering as he flew alongside them. It seemed that all the other Minpins from the big tree had turned up as well to witness the great victory over the dreaded gruncher. Every kind of bird was circling around Little Billy and Swan, and the Minpins on their backs were waving and clapping and shouting with joy. Little Billy waved back and laughed and thought how wonderful it all was. Then, led by Swan, all the birds and the Minpins returned to the home tree. Back in the tree, there was a tremendous celebration for Little Billy's victory over the dreaded gruncher. Minpins from all over the forest had flown in on their birds to cheer the young hero, and all the branches and twigs of the great tree were crowded with tiny people. When the cheers and clapping had died down at last, Domini stood up to make a speech. "Minpins of the forest," he cried, raising his small voice so that it could be heard all over the tree. "The murderous gruncher who has gobbled up so many thousands of us Minpins has gone forever. The forest floor is safe at last for us to walk. So now we can all go down to pick blackberries and winkleberries and puckleberries and muckleberries and twinkleberries and snozberries to our heart's content. And our children can play among the wildflowers and the roots all day long." Domini paused and turned his eyes upon Little Billy, who was sitting on a branch not far away. "But ladies and gentlemen," he went on, "who is it we have to thank for this great blessing that has come upon us? Who is the savior of the Minpins?" Domini paused again. The Minpins in their thousands sat listening intently. "Our savior," he cried out, "our hero, our wonder boy is, as you already know, our human visitor, Little Billy." Cheers and shouts of hooray for Little Billy rose from the crowd. Domini now turned and spoke directly to Little Billy. "You, my boy, have done a wonderful thing for us, and in return, we wish to do something for you. I've had a word with Swan, and he's agreed to become your personal private airplane for just as long as you remain small enough to fly on his back. However, Dominique continued, still addressing little Billy, you cannot go flying around all over the place on Swan's back in full daylight. Some human would be bound to see you. And then the secret would be out, and you would be forced to tell your people all about us. That must never happen. If it did, crowds of enormous humans would come clumping all over our beloved forest to look for Minpins, and our quiet homeland would be ruined. I'll never tell a soul, little Billy cried. Even so, Dominique said, we cannot risk you making daylight flights. But every night, after the light in your bedroom has been switched off, Swan will come to your window to see if you'd like a ride. Sometimes he'll bring you back here to see us. Other times, he would take you to visit places more wonderful than you could ever dream of. Would you like Swan to take you home now? I think we can risk just one more quick daylight flight. Oh gosh, little Billy cried. I'd clean forgotten about home. Mommy'll be in a panic. I must fly. Minnie gave a signal, and in 5 seconds, Swan swooped down and landed on the tree. Little Billy climbed onto his back, and as the great swan spread his wings and flew away, the whole forest, not just the tree they were in, but the whole forest from end to end, came alive with the cheering of 1,000,000 Minpins. Swan landed on the lawn of Little Billy's house, and Little Billy jumped off his back and ran into the living room window. Very quietly he climbed in. The room was empty. Little Billy, came his mother's voice from the kitchen. What are you up to in there? You've been quiet for a very long time. I'm being good, Mummy, Little Billy called back. I'm being very, very good. His mother came into the room with a pile of ironing in her arms. She looked at Little Billy. What have you been doing? She cried. Your clothes are absolutely filthy. I've been climbing trees, Little Billy said. I can't let you out of my sight for 10 minutes, his mother said. Which tree was it? Oh, just one of those old trees outside, Little Billy said. If you're not careful, you'll fall down and break an arm, his mother said. Don't do it again. I won't, Little Billy said, smiling a little. I'll just fly up into the branches on silver wings. What rubbish you talk, his mother said, and she walked out of the room with her ironing.